I've been doing some tuning on a Postgres database, our backend for Constant Care, and there's
this isn't this isn't a confessional, Richie.
No, well, maybe. I see it as like the real world confessional. Eric.
What brings you in today, my son?
He needs less tattoos. He just less. So when you do an explain plan in Postgres, you don't get a nice graphical plan. You just get the vomit it comes out of, and you just got to understand how to read it. I used to do that in Teradata all the time, so it's kind of, I'm used to it, so I understand that. But I did find a site that did it, and if you Google Postgres query plan visualization, you'll find it. It's something dealing with PEV. I don't know what PEV is, but they use PEV, and it's very much like paste a plan. You see all the stuff underneath, and it will tell you what's fastest, what's slowest, and all this other good stuff. So I've been using that to do a lot of Postgres optimization, and it's worked pretty well. I've been pretty happy with it.
Yeah, when looking at the output, it reminded me a lot of the way statistics parser works, where it takes, it takes like whatever you paste in, and it does all this cool like regex-y stuff to kind of parse it out and make it more readable. So I think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, the only thing you need to it is that you do need to output it in JSON. So when you do explain, analyze, ... whatever, you need to put it output JSON or whatever it is, format JSON, and then you paste that in, and then you have to separately paste in your query, and then it will do everything else. But you don't need to actually paste it in your query. You could just do the output, and it will do all that stuff for you. But there's some interesting advice from people out there on blogs on how to do Postgres, and I'm like, I'm not doing that. That's bad advice. If you really wanted to know.
Well, I think one of the some of the best advice I've seen for Postgres specifically is over on db.stack exchange. Like there's a couple of people who like just like really intimately involved with like Postgres development and tuning and stuff. Like I think like Erwin Brentstetter is on there, and he just like knows everything and has like the longest, craziest. I want to say he's like the Paul White of Postgres, which I know doesn't like put him anywhere close to like Paul White, but still. I'm just kidding. But he has very good answers, very detailed stuff on there, knows like the product and the features and stuff inside out. It's so, if you have any questions, you might go ask a question over there, Richie. I don't know. It might break your heart having to post a question on a DBA site, though.
It may be. It's interesting, to go into Postgres after so many years of SQL Server, because it's familiar enough, but different enough to you're like, okay, is that really going to work? And you try different things, and it's like, okay, yeah, that worked, or yeah, that didn't, and you have to figure out, well, why that is. And it's just not like the dearth of documentation and blog posts out there that we have with SQL Server. It's just not. I mean, more often than not, you're in some sort of forum post that occurred, 10 years ago, and it's like, okay, is this really trustworthy? Is this relevant still? I don't know.
It's like, why are you bothering me? But yeah, I know that's like one thing that comes up with, I think, every language or product over time is you get stuck in that weird time warp where you start like Googling for a solution on something. Like PowerShell is an awesome example of that, because like there's since PowerShell like 2, 3, 4, and now 5 is out, whenever you look for something, there's a whole bunch of stuff, or like even Python's a great example. There's a whole bunch of stuff that works in like Python 2.7 that doesn't work, or like has changed, or way different in Python 3. Same thing across all the different PowerShell versions. SQL Server has the same, finally, like I'll say SQL Server has a fragmentation problem. When you look at the way things work across all the different, editions and, whatever versions, it's crazy the stuff that, has been fixed, works, changes across all of that behaviorally. Even something as simple as identity column caching changed in 2012, and that was a fancy trace flag to switch it back to the old way of behave. So it's always fun, challenging, and interesting to find if you need like immediate, like I just want to copy and paste some crap onto my screen and have it work, it's always fun, challenging, and interesting to find something that A, works, is current, or like is like still a best practice, or like still the best way to do something all at once. It's really hard to find that, like, you know, like even if you use, you know, the search tool features, like if you say I only want stuff from the past month or the past year, you know, you can still find just like god awful advice and, you know, code examples and questions and everything else. So I don't know.
Yeah, it reminds me of, I deal with this stuff all the time using Node.js. We use Node.js in our serverless backend, and you know, we are stuck on 6.3.1. That is the framework that Lambda uses. That's the most recent one we have. I think they're now pushing 10. You know, and there's a whole bunch of examples and stuff on 8.4 and higher using await and async and all this other stuff that we cannot use. Don't have the framework in the back. So we'll change things when Lambda upgrades, but you know, when you're dealing with open source and things, you know, iterate very quickly, and you're using the server or the hoster you're using hasn't upgraded yet, you're just cooking in the old version.
Yeah. And you know, and you know, it's funny even thinking about a product like Redshift, which is a fork of Postgres, like 8 or something, or 9 or something. Like that version of Postgres is like almost 2 full versions behind what the fork was, or what the current like non-forked Postgres is. So it's like, you know, whatever works there isn't guaranteed to work in both places anymore. So it's just like this constant struggle with all the open source forkings going on. Like I just can't wait for Microsoft to fork Postgres and do something awful to it. I'm looking forward to that.
All right, well, it's 12:19. We have some questions. You want to go ahead and dive into those?
Oh, sure, why not? Let's see. I'm going to try this name, but I'm not going to do well at it. Cybou, S-C-Y-B-O-U. I like that you have B-O-U in your name. Those Brent Ozar Unlimited. Ask, what should you do first when you start a new job at a company that never had a DBA before? My man, backups, 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 backups. Make sure that the backups are in order before you do a damn other thing. If you don't have those, like it doesn't matter if you're checking for CheckDB or checking for corruption. It doesn't matter what else you're doing in your life. If you don't have those backups, you are missing the biggest piece of the you know, DBA puzzle. What do you think, Richie?
Oh, no, that's exactly right. So, in fact, we don't even do consulting gigs unless we have backups from the client. And we actually go in and check and make sure that they have valid backups for everything. And there's been times where we've actually canceled gigs because they haven't had valid backups, you know. So we're practicing what we preach. That's all I'm saying.
Not even like, you know, they like a situation where it's like, oh, they've just never taken a backup. It's like if their backups are like more than a week, 10 days old, we're still like, hey, no, you have to take one like now because we don't know what was in that. We don't know what was going on the last time you did anything. I feel like a nerd now. Everyone can see my EpiPen sitting out on my printer. I went to get my allergy shot yesterday, and I have to bring this thing with me to get my allergy shot, or else they won't give it to me because I might, I guess, die in the office. So
I mean,
that's what that is. I'm like, oh, shoot.
That kind of reminds me of the old bear skit from SNL. You know, you think, that's my 4th heart attack this week.
That was a good one. That was like one of the last funny things SNL ever did.
No. They've been doing some pretty good stuff, you know, recently. I haven't been watching it live, but I've been watching it on digital, and Bill Hader was on this week, and he broke like 5 times. It was great. It was he just kept breaking. He's like, I'm not a cast member anymore. I don't have to worry about my job.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go ahead and break. Just cracking up in the middle of stuff
for this. I don't know unless he's trying to come back on SNL. But to get back to Cybou's question a little bit. So after backups, of course, CheckDB. Make sure you have corruption, you know, checks running. After that, you know, everything else is kind of less important. It's like, you know, business priorities. So like make sure you're meeting RPO and RTO goals. Then after that, make sure you're meeting whatever SLAs you have with customers. And then after that, you can start focusing on stuff like performance, whether it's query or index tuning. Please feel free. I mean, it's free. Give SP Blitz a run. Head over to First Responder Kit. Go grab a recent copy of SP Blitz. Give it a run. See if there's any surprises. You know, best way to do things, I think. You know,
I don't know.
Neatly packaged up for you.
We have this new product that we just been slowly rolling out called Constant Care, and Constant Care will actually go in and do all of that stuff for you. It will actually go in and you send us the data every day, and we'll send you an email. Right now we're once a week, eventually be once a day, and it will actually tell you, hey, this one backup didn't run, or it will tell you, go do this or go do that. So that is an option, and you don't need to worry about running scripts or anything like that. You do one install and it does it all for you. So obviously it's something near and dear to my heart because you're my life. But yeah, since we're now getting the word out, I can now talk about it. So it's
right. Like finally, like the thing that you've been working on almost since you first started here, and everyone's just like, "What the hell is Richie doing?"
What is he doing?
Just paste the plan. Really? That's it?
I know. And he hasn't done anything in like a year. What's up with that?
Barely works. Just kidding. It works fine. Anyway, all right. Let's go on to the next question. Let me clean that one up. Let's see. I'm currently a BI developer, but I'm interested in becoming a DBA as a future goal. What aspects of DBA do you consider basic versus advanced, i.e. DBA versus senior DBA? For example, would you put replication, HADR in the basic or advanced group? Well, there is a basic and advanced level of knowledge with anything. So what I would do is forget about replication immediately. Don't pursue that. It's really not the future of, it's not an HADR feature for one, and two, it's not really the direction that anyone's going to be heading in if they need HADR. As SQL Server progresses and availability groups, basic availability groups on standard edition get, more robust and less brittle, that is going to be the pretty obvious, the HADR solution for just about everyone moving forward. But like I said, there's a basic and advanced level of knowledge with anything. Knowing how to create an index is a whole lot different from knowing how to tune an index. Same thing goes for query writing. And knowing how to write a query is a lot different from knowing how to tune a query. So it really depends on where you see yourself as a DBA. The days of the Swiss Army knife DBA are slowly drying up. If you want to really be senior in anything, you have to specialize like a son of a gun, and you have to get really good at something. There are just simply too many products and too many features and too many quirks and too many other things for someone to really have a senior level of knowledge across the board. I'm sure there are some people who can get that, but there are people who have had those building blocks for years now. Like if you take someone like Bob Ward, who will be able to, troubleshoot an availability group, tune a query, figure out indexes, run a debugger, do stuff with extended events. There's obviously like the kind of Renaissance men out there who can do all that. But, one of my absolute heroes in the world, Paul White, probably knows very little about availability groups, but knows, the optimizer intimately. So if you want to be a senior DBA, you have to specialize. You have to figure out what you're passionate about as a DBA. If it's the HADR stuff, then you have your direction there. If it's the query and index tuning, then that's your direction for that.
Yeah, and I would say since this is the future goal and you're looking into becoming a DBA, then you still need to understand the concepts so you could actually talk intelligently about them. Yep. So if you're going for a job and you're not focusing on replication, but they're doing replication, you want at least to have a conversation about that and understand, why replication isn't the future and why this other technology is. So, don't avoid it, but don't go in depth if it doesn't interest you.
Yeah. Obviously, DBAs need a certain level of knowledge about little things, even if they're not going to specialize in it. Like if you're going to call yourself a DBA, you should at least know how to take a backup and do a restore without like Googling too much. But, if that's not your primary goal as a DBA, if your goal is not the backup and restore infrastructure person, then, obviously you don't need to know every single in and out about like buffer counts and max transfer sizes and all that other stuff. So, really pick the route that you want to take as a DBA, or, since you have it seems like a pretty solid position as a BI developer now, take your time in figuring out what you really like about the DBA role and then pursue that in a seniorly way, I guess. I don't really know how else to say that.
No, I think it's good. Good.
Yeah, all right. Good. All right. I got passing grades from Richie, so I'm ready to ask the next one. Steve Malcolm, who we've been talking to via email. is still confused about tempdb files. Yes, Steve, you need your NDF files. Those are secondary data files. And since this is tempdb, you're going to want to have more than one data file. Steve thought that sent us an email yesterday asking why he had multiple tempdb log files, but it turned out that, we'll get to it in a second, but it turned out that they were both data files. Now, with the 2016 and 2017 SQL Server setups, something that's changed from prior versions of SQL Server, which used to just give you the one tempdb file, is during the setup process, there's a screen that comes up that looks at how many CPUs you have in your system, and it gives you one tempdb file per core up to, I think, like 8, and then it stops there. And the bottom line on that is that, like the link I sent you over to about configuring tempdb yesterday, configuring multiple data files on tempdb is generally a wise thing to do. SQL Server can use those files in a parallel manner. It can write to a whole bunch of them at once, which can reduce contention and all sorts of other stuff if you have a busy tempdb. All right. And the nice thing about 2016 and 2017 is they made the behavior of trace flags 1117 and 1118 the standard. That's the default behavior now, so you don't have to turn those on anymore. No, you don't. All right. Fun. Let me catch my breath for a second here.
I don't know. Whatever you just said, it sounded good to me. But, again, I'm not the level of DBA that guy is. So, I don't, whack, 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 whack. But then again, I couldn't get, you to deploy a serverless application either. So
no. And that's the wonderful thing is that Brent can find people who can do the little bibs and bobs of exactly what he needs. He has you if he needs to do some crazy serverless development task that I would have no hope of ever getting past, like figuring out what to do for step 1 on. He has me and Tara for the consulting and the DBA type stuff. He's got things pretty solid, I don't know. Well, at least I hope he does anyway. If he doesn't,
what about Brent for?
I think
a lot of things,
he's like Dad. We bring him along because he buys stuff, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Pay for the movie tickets. He's a nice guy. He's fun. Let's see. Oh boy, Doug says, I have a situation, not our old Doug. I have a situation where I need to downgrade SQL 2016 Enterprise to standard. If I maintain copies of master model and MSDB, and after uninstalling, oh boy. Geez. I've never had to go through that process. I would highly, strongly, firmly suggest that you try that somewhere because I don't even know that you would be able to use those copies.
Well, it's the same version.
Right.
It's just different editions. Yeah. I would, definitely test it out. Yeah. I'm thinking it probably would work. I don't know.
Because like I just, I don't know. I would want to test that. I would be concerned about all sorts of things with that. I wouldn't want to rely on that for a downgrade.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that came to my mind is that you would just move all your objects over,
right.
SSIS or something. You would move the data, but it's the same version, it's just different editions. So maybe.
But here's what I would want to do instead. I would want to side install. I wouldn't want to uninstall the first one completely. I would want to side install standard edition. And then you could use something, this is actually a good use for PowerShell, is the dbatools.io people have written all sorts of commandlets to like copy settings and stuff from one server to another. It's not quite desired state configuration, but it's a good, if you need to like migrate a bunch of stuff over all at once, it might be a good option. There are a whole bunch of commandlets over there that can do that and other cool things. So head over to dbatools.io, side install standard edition, and then script out whatever stuff you want to move over to there. I wouldn't rely on the uninstall, reinstall, and like either have SQL 2016 pick up on the new files or try to like restore stuff over. That just sounds like a nightmare to me. And if you do that, you have absolutely no backout clause. You are stuck. You are hosed with whatever setup you get yourself into. If you do the side install and you just script out the stuff that you need to move over, I think that puts you in a much safer place. even if you have to.
And if this is a virtual machine, then just spin up a new virtual machine and just do it that way. But yeah, wow. Good luck. Because that sounds like a rough one.
Yeah, that's not fun at all. This is the stuff that does not make me want to have a real job ever again. All right. Pablo asks an interesting architectural question. I have a view that gets 3 billion rows to make queries there. I don't know what that means exactly. Those rows are across 40 plus databases making unions. Is this structure okay? May I have less databases or just one to avoid the unions? Pablo. This is generally the kind of thing that one would want to avoid.
Yeah, we would consider that not a best practice. That's
yeah. It's a little bit more than one could diagnose without looking at things in a 30-minute free webcast. But generally, that's not a design pattern that we would want to put folks into. If you're doing like the one database per client thing, I'm totally on board with that. I think that's a much better pattern than like the giant database teaming with everybody, even if they're separated by schema or whatever other crazy things. I think that's a much smarter way to do things. If you really need to query data across all of those databases, perhaps like a database that you pull data from rather than having to execute queries across all of them at once would make more sense. Like you could have like a, just like a data dump database, and you could have SSIS just move stuff in incrementally during the course of whatever day or period you need. Then again, if what you have written isn't slow or it's not causing any problems, don't change a thing until it causes problems.
Yeah. When I think about joining 3 billion rows in a union,
it might slow things down.
Yeah. I don't know what you're trying to do, but just trying to do that through a view would give me the caution to say, wait, what are we trying to do for one? And is there a better way of doing it than in a view? Maybe there's a different way we could go about this. I'm assuming that because you have 40 different databases, it's the same database, but all for different customers. And those are tough architectures, especially when you're trying to join them all together and do data off of them. Typically, you want to put them all into one database. But there's different solutions for different things that you're trying to do. So 3 billion rows in all different databases and then trying to get all of them synced together and all that, that's tough as well. So, that's a tough one. But yeah, it all depends on what you're trying to do and what data you're trying to glean from and what information. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Sri asks a question, and I swear to God, this is a question. This is not a plant so that we can talk about Constant Care again. It is in the transcript. I'm looking at it right now. My name is not Sri, and as far as I know, neither is Richie's. What kind of monitoring tools do you use to monitor SQL Server instances? Do you have any thoughts on the Grafana dashboard and alerting? Well, no, I don't. And it's not because I think it's bad. It's just because I've never used it or seen it. I don't really know. So Brent's been posting some great posts, Brent, lately about our pseudo monitoring tool. But like he says, it's more of a mentoring tool. So you have, a good set of vendors out there, SentryOne, Quest Spotlight, people like that who have a cool monitoring tool with a good dashboard that gives you, pretty similar metrics across a whole bunch of different areas in SQL Server, let you dig in, drill deeper. But the direction we went is a little bit different, because with any monitoring tool, you need to figure out how to use the monitoring tool, figure out how to dig into what's deeper, and then learn how to solve the problems that are causing the monitoring tool to show you to these things. The direction we're going with it is like Brent calls it, a mentoring tool. So what we're going to do is we're going to get all the data the monitoring tool would. We're going to analyze it. We're going to do that work for you, and then we're going to send you an email that tells you which buttons to push and which things to do to try to solve those problems. So it's a little bit different take on monitoring, there's no dashboard involved. There is no like, you don't get to, you know, look at uptime, downtime, green lights, red lights, you know, charts and graphs and all that stuff. But you also don't have to learn how to read all those charts and graphs and do all the work behind the scenes.
Yeah, some of those metrics always made my eyes just cross. I'm like, ooh, it's red. Is that bad?
Yeah.
Is that really a problem? Having all those weight stats is that a problem? What does that actually do? And then you have to figure out, okay, well, what does it actually do? And then you have to do more investigation.
Yeah.
Is that actually a problem for our server?
Right, and like a lot of monitoring tools will just show you whatever is high. So it's like if some completely meaningless metric just happens to spike up, like buffer cache hit ratio, or like, I don't know, what's another weird one? I don't know, stuff like that. Like, yeah, sure. Or it's like, you know, stuff just pops up and they're like, oh my God, freak out. And you're like, what does that mean? And you're like, I don't know, is it bad? Like, I don't know, how many page splits do I have? I don't know, what's going on? You just get like so confused staring at all these different numbers that are just changing all the time, and you have no idea if they're good, bad, or ugly.
Yeah, and you know, maybe you had all these extremely high page splits and, oh my gosh, we have a problem. And yet you did the huge load into the database the day before. And then now you're like, oh, I've got a problem. Oh, but wait, there was a load that went in. Oh, that would have done it.
Fun fact, SQL Server counts new page creations as a page split. Ha ha. No one's looking into that. It's like you insert 1 million rows. It's like, oh, I have 1 million page splits. Dear God, like, what am I going to do? Funny. Chris asks kind of an interesting question. What are other areas to focus on as a DBA besides HADR and query tuning? Well, I guess DevOps might be a thing.
Starting to.
Yeah. So I don't know. I know thankfully little about DevOps so far. So I'll let Richie expound on that one a little bit.
Oh, thanks, sir, so much.
I did you that one, right?
Yeah, I've worked on a couple DevOps teams. Essentially, it's the idea of
Scrum Master.
I am a certified Scrum Master. Oddly enough, I have my Agile certification. Ooh, which means I could read, kind of. It was the dumbest test ever. It was like the answers were in the questions, and it's like, you think some Microsoft tests are bad? Woo! Mm-hmm. Certified Scrum Master was even worse. But essentially, it's the idea of you're merging your development and your operations together. So as opposed to throwing things over a wall and letting the DBAs handle it, the DBA works very closely with the development team, or is usually on the development team, and they kind of work together for these things. So your DevOps would be kind of the merge of a database developer and a DBA kind of into one bundle. They typically would know lots of scripting languages and kind of handle things together. They do things like dashboards and monitoring and make sure everybody understands the state of the system and things like that. So yeah, I mean, that's an option, way to go. I mean, someone like myself, I can be considered a database developer. I consider myself a data developer. You have to pay me if you want to use that. But essentially, exactly. So I use.
Let's get ready to rumble.
That's
every time you say it, you have to pay
data developer. But essentially, I stand in the middle between the development team and the database and the data team, and I make sure all that stuff in the middle kind of goes very fast, whether it's using ORMs or software or whatever that is. So I kind of have to kind of both the software and the development side. Not a lot of us guys around, so I hear it's a growth industry. You may want to think into that.
Yeah, software is a big thing apparently. I never would have noticed.
You know, not a lot of us software developers have opinions. I didn't need you to know that. We're really easygoing guys, you know. It's like, I mean, oh, you like that? Oh, I like Visual Basic. Oh, isn't that great?
Yeah, let's high five and hug. And let's like talk about it civilly over lunch. Let's not talk about like the weird version to version issues that we have.
Yeah, let's meet on Stack Overflow. I've got nothing but great things to say about your question.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I love the way you handle nulls. How fast can you serialize that array? I don't know. All right. Daryl asks a sort of follow-up question to the monitoring thing. He says, I already have a monitoring service 24/7. what would be the point of Constant Care? Would I want to keep my 24/7 service? It's not a replacement for a 24/7 service. This is something that checks in right now. It collects data once a day, but right now it checks in with you once a week. Like Richie said, it'll eventually move to once a day, where we look at your server, we try to see what's good, bad, and ugly about your server, and we send you an email so that and like we teach, or we have like training videos and stuff. So like we send you an email, we say, hey, this is what we saw on your server. These are the things going on. These are the things we think you should fix. Here's how to fix it with like, links to training videos, blah, 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 stuff like that. So it's not a replacement for a 24/7 service. It's going to give you like up, down, servers on fire type stuff. What it is it's going to take a look at a server over time and figure out if it's doing better or worse, and how you can make it do better.
Yeah, I like the way he put it as it's a mentoring tool, and some of the feedback we've gotten, from some people, it's like I'm a solo DBA, and it's like I have a coworker like sitting next to me, and
right,
and so I could kind of throw ideas off of, because you have a certain level of access to us as well through the service. So, it's new, it's different. I would suggest reading the posts that Brent is putting on the site every Monday. I think there's 3 of them out already. I've been way deep in the code, so even when I read some of that stuff, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's right. And I've been working on it for a year. So, if you want to talk more about the service and development and what it takes and all that stuff, then I'm your guy. But if you want to know about what it can do for you and things like that, those posts are phenomenal.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of new ones coming out.
Every Monday, I think they're going to be dropping, right?
Yeah, for a while anyway. So we're going to finish up. Tom asks, is it okay to do a full backup, then switch the database to recovery mode simple? You're lucky Tara's not here to hear you say recovery mode. Run dbcc shrink file, and then switch the recovery mode back to full. Bad news, you won't be in full recovery model again until you take a full backup after you switch it back to full. So I don't know. Don't shrink your databases. Just please stop doing it. It's a bad idea. It's not a good idea. It's like since 2009, it's been known bad idea. Don't do it anymore. Please stop.
Actually, before we drop, Stephanie had a suggestion saying that setup.exe has an option to downgrade editions, which I did not know.
I've never seen that either. Congratulations, Stephanie.
Yeah, all right. So maybe it's easy as just running setup.exe again and just say downgrade this sucker.
There you go. All right. Ooh, but that would be interesting if they're using enterprise features.
Yes.
So if you were using TDE, you wouldn't be able to downgrade.
Yeah, TDE well, I guess now even if they are using partitions, but that's free now too, right?
But SP1, yeah, 2016 SP1. But there's a whole bunch of stuff that's still not available to everyone. So, oof. All right. Well, we should go now. Get back to work. Richie has cloud stuff to do. I think I have other things to do too. So
I've got database tuning.
Woo-hoo. You do more of that than I do these days.
Yeah, I have. It's all the bad code that I've written.
Well, someone's got to write it. All right, folks. Thanks for showing up. We will see you next week. Goodbye.